The Vancouver Canucks may never lose a hockey game again, people. Yeah, I had to take a little bit of a break in watching today's game to make the video about Lucas Raymond's contract extension, but the Vancouver Canucks still put on a show that is worth talking about regardless. Today was the final day of the Young Stars Classic in Penticton, British Columbia, a tournament held between 4 Western Canadian teams in Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, and of course Vancouver, and the Canucks had just completed their final game of the tournament. They defeated the Calgary Flames 4-3. This comes after a 4-2 victory over the Winnipeg Jets yesterday, and a 2-0 win over the Edmonton Oilers prospects from Friday. Vancouver went undefeated in this tournament, which I guess in hindsight might have been the expectation, but heading into the tournament, I've been saying this in the previous 2 videos we had made about these games, but Vancouver's prospect pool doesn't necessarily have some of the top tier talent, like, let's say the Calgary Flames. Zayne Parekh, that guy, if he was a Vancouver Canucks prospect, he would be the best prospect in Vancouver. In Winnipeg, you've got Brad Lambert. If he was a Canucks prospect, he would be the #1 guy. Not to disrespect Jonathan Lekkerimäki or Arshdeep Bains or Aatu, but these guys just don't have the same absolute top-tier, elite caliber ceilings like some of the other prospects do on the other teams. That's not bad. I mean, the Canucks haven't really had the opportunities to drafting guys any better than Lekkerimäki because they're always trading away their first-round picks, and quite frankly, the team has gotten better, so their picks are getting worse in quality. But at the same time, this team was still able to find ways to win. The Canucks prospect pool and the top-tier guys on the Canucks prospect pool are a tad older than some of the other teams that they were facing off against, and the guys that are younger but still able to make significant impacts, like Jonathan Lekkerimäki, like Aatu, these guys were showing off that their pro experience in the AHL and in the SHL, like Lekkerimäki's case, was definitely going to carry over, playing off against guys who had played mostly in the CHL, like some of these opposing teams' prospects have. All this to say is that even though the Vancouver Canucks may not have significant, absolutely elite franchise-defining talents in their prospect pools, they've got older guys that know how to use their maturity and experience, and they've got prospects that are good enough to be able to keep up and do some damage to the opposition. The Canucks win this game against Calgary 4-3. They were down 2-0 in the first period, but all it took was 4 unanswered goals for Vancouver to bounce back, take the 4-2 lead, and hang on for the 4-3 ultimate decision victory. The first goal of the game was scored by Matvei Gridin, whom you might recognize as an interesting name in Canucks lore, because he's a Calgary Flames prospect that was drafted in the 28th overall spot in the most recent NHL Draft. Gridin was drafted by Calgary using the Vancouver Canucks first-round pick that was sent over in the Elias Lindholm-Andrei Kuzmenko trade. So, pretty interesting to see that. Of course, Hunter Brustevich and Joni Jurmo were suiting up in this tournament as well. Joni Jurmo had a pretty interesting presence in today's game. Second goal was scored by Zayne Parekh, so the Calgary Flames offensive defenseman prospect, 2 guys taken in the first round of 2024, up on the board in the goal category here for today's game. But at this point, the Canucks were down 2-0 in the first period. They weren't playing their best. All it took was Arshdeep Bains to have an absolutely dominant shift on the forecheck with Aatu. They were getting chances, they were cycling the puck around, and eventually the puck gets thrown on goal. Arshdeep Bains is there to bat it up and then baseball swing it into the cage behind the Flames goaltender. Bains had himself a superhero-like shift to bring the Canucks within 1 right before the end of that first period, and that shifted the momentum so heavily that it carried over into periods number 2 and for a good chunk of period number 3 as well. Arshdeep Bains has had some really good shifts throughout this tournament. It's kind of crazy that he only has the 1 goal on the entire thing, because even in the game against the Edmonton Oilers and the Winnipeg Jets, Bains was racking up scoring opportunities and setting his teammates up like crazy. The guy could have realistically had 5 or 6 points throughout the entire tournament, but he's limited because of a few missed opportunities and a few good saves. Either way, though, he gets his first goal of the tournament towards the end of the first period here against the Calgary Flames, and that carries over into the second period, where on the power play, you had yourselves the Vancouver Canucks just doing what the Vancouver Canucks do. Sure, it's not Petey, Miller, Besser, and Hughes, but it's a good enough squad that can get one-timers on goal. Jonathan Lekkerimäki absolutely ripping it up, and eventually the puck is thrown on goal from the OV spot by Danila Klimovich, and it's tipped down and by the goaltender by Riley Patterson in front. 2-2 game on the power play. Klimovich the shot, Patterson the tip, and give it just a few minutes and it's Deagan McMillan, Vancouver Canucks signee, brought in as a free agent to this prospect tournament, who's able to break free and put the puck in by the Flames goaltender. 3-2 Vancouver in the third period, and eventually, just 2 minutes later, it's Vilmer Alriksson who scores yet again for the Vancouver Canucks, making it 4-2. Seriously, McMillan and then Alriksson scored 2 goals in the span of like 2 minutes, and if you add that on to the Riley Patterson mark from about 3 minutes prior to that, the Vancouver Canucks decided at the halfway mark of this second period that they wanted to take over the game and they wanted to win. This carried over into the third period where the Canucks had some chances, but honestly, they kind of did let the Flames bounce back a little bit. Calgary scored to open up the third period with a nice, beautiful goal from Samuel Honzek, making it 4-3. That's all she wrote. The score stayed 4-3, but the Flames did start to cook it up a little bit more towards the end of the period. The Canucks kind of retreated into their let's just keep dumping the puck and icing it on the empty net kind of style towards the end there, and this is kind of where you started to see more of the defensive stability bring itself out from the Canucks game plan. You know, this is an older, more experienced group, Sasson, Bains, etc., and for the most part, they were playing a pretty non-selfish game. Just kind of dumping it out, trying to get those changes through, not really worrying if they iced it, and just doing what they needed to do to get the victory at the end there. It was interesting to see the Calgary Flames because they ran with a 5-forward, 1 defenseman setup when they had the empty net. Zayne Parekh did not take a shift off for like the last 3-4 minutes of the game. It was pretty nuts for him, but considering the caliber of talent that he has, it's not surprising that they entrusted that kind of support onto him. Either way, though, I think a lot of these Canucks players played pretty well. I'd say the first line of Bains and Ratu was very, very effective. Klimovich, though, I don't necessarily think he had the best game. Some of the decisions that he was making were kind of questionable, especially the ones where he had the puck and there was an empty net at the end, although you could say maybe it's due to fatigue, and I think he dropped his stick at one point as well. That kind of jumbled up a lot of the momentum. Either way, though, that line was pretty good. I'd say that Alriksson and Lekkerimäki impressed as well, not to mention Max Sasson. Alriksson with 2 goals in 2 games. The guy has just been really effective. He's got that dog in him. The goal that he had scored today definitely was not as beautiful as the one that he had scored yesterday. Today's goal, he was just at a wide angle and he just kind of threw the puck on goal. Not really the kind of goal you'd expect to score, but a nice goal to have nonetheless, and of course, it ends up being the game winner. For defensemen, Akito Hirose, I thought he was pretty good, which, I mean, that's to be expected. He was an NHL player at some point throughout the past few years, too. Soner Minio, I thought, had a really underrated game. Some of the passes he was making stood out to me in a really good way. Elias Pettersson, of course, stable, calm presence on the blue line. Love to see that. And Nikita Tolopilo had a really good game, too. He had some really good saves in there and instilled a lot of confidence in the Canucks prospects. So, hey, Vancouver takes another dub, 4-3 against Calgary, and they're 3-0 in this tournament. They won all of their games, proving themselves the winner of the Young Stars Classic. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the Canucks and their game against the Calgary Flames. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.